This is not just me trying to be cynical once again about the iPhone. I actually have been daily driving this phone for quite a while, and there are some things that I'm pretty concerned about with this phone that I just want to air out and be honest with you guys about if you're considering buying this phone. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is a good phone, and when it comes to hardware, there isn't really a lot of problems with it, but it's being really held back by software. And I've been daily driving the 14 Pro Max alongside the Apple Watch Ultra, and the main reason I've been doing this is honestly for convenience. I use the Apple Watch Ultra for health tracking because it's honestly the best watch that I've been using. When it comes to heart rate monitoring, sleep tracking, the battery life has been really good and it hasn't let me down. Not to mention with my health and the medical issues that have been popping up, for fall detection, it's probably the only watch that I can actually trust. So that's kind of why I've been locked into using this iPhone 14 Pro Max, whether I like it or not. But before we dive in, if you could just leave a like and a sub to the channel, I would really appreciate it. You guys have been showing incredible support on this channel. It's only been like 7 months since we started, and we hit 10K before the end of the year. So if we can do 11K, I know that would be pushing it, but like, who's stopping us? We're actually kind of steamrolling it right now. It's insane. Anyways, the 14 Pro Max is a good phone, like through and through. There isn't really too many problems when it comes to the actual hardware of the device. There's not much that I can fault. Aside from it being a pretty similar design, that's a complaint that I've made pretty often, but that doesn't really hold the phone back. What really holds the 14 Pro Max back is software. And when it comes to software, iOS 16 is just, it's not cutting it. And as someone that has left Apple to kind of play around and, use Android quite a bit, I've really come to appreciate how open Android is. And I know the people who are on iPhone and are already invoked into the iOS and Apple ecosystem, they're never gonna leave because they've joined this cult and, they're just not going to ever get out of it, and I understand, but I'm telling you that yes, iOS is a pretty reliable operating system, and that's not something that I'm going to take away from it. But iOS 16, and really, frankly, just iOS in general, it's not a very open operating system, and I guess that's kind of the point of it being reliable, is that there's not a lot that you can do. It's very close-ended, and it's kind of like a feature and a negative, if you see what I mean. Because the thing is, on an Android phone, you can just download an APK, sideload an application, or you can download certain icon packs or certain launchers and tweak the way the phone looks. And here's the thing that I find funny about this, and when it comes to customization on iPhone, Apple actually introduced custom lock screens, and a lot of people were really excited about that on iOS. But prior to that, a lot of people were saying that customizing an iPhone is going to make it look like a cheap Android, which I think is just hilarious. It's a really stupid argument, but it's so funny to see people trying to cope with the fact that not having these features, and the reason Apple doesn't give us these features is just because they don't want the phone to look like a cheap phone. It doesn't make any sense. So people will say that we don't get these icons or the ability to change what they look like because it will look like a cheaper phone. The thing that I find funny about that is if you ever look at any sort of lifestyle tech YouTubers like Siobhan Salmon or Canoopsy, they always post their home screen and icon setups, and they're always so minimalistic and cool, and stuff like that has a lot of workarounds. You need to make app shortcuts and stuff like that. So when people do it, it takes a really, really, really long time, and it's not something that Apple wants you to do, but people go crazy over it. People really try to do it, and these tweaks and doing these things takes a really long time and a really long commitment, and frankly, I just don't have the time for it, and it's why my home screen setup just looks like this. It looks like literally nothing. So I just wish for more on the customization front. I wish for more ability to change, our icons. And one thing that baffles me is that we can't even place our icons anywhere on the home screen. Why are we not allowed to move our icons wherever we want? Why do they have to automatically go to the most up left point of the display? It makes absolutely no sense. It is nearly 2023. Apple, this phone has been out. iOS has been out for years, okay? Why? This is the absolute most stupid thing that you've ever done on the iPhone. Another gripe that I have about customization on the home screen is the widgets. Why on earth do widgets need a name underneath them? I know what widget it is. The whole point of a widget is to give you information at a glance. Sometimes I use widgets because I want them to look clean. Like on my Fold 4, my setup is just showing me the date and the time, and I think it looks really nice. I don't want to see the name of the widget underneath the widget. I know what widget I use to make that widget. Why do I need the name of the widget? Apple, what the fuck are you doing? Apple is like a design company, and they restrict you from doing anything that looks marginally good when it comes to design. Like it's either their way or fuck off. And it just makes absolutely no sense. Like, I think it looks so dumb putting a name under a widget. How does that look good? It like genuinely blows my mind that this is what is being done to the iPhone. I know that's such a nitpick, but for real, I don't know why. Let's move on. Gesture navigation. When it comes to gesture navigation, everyone on iOS thinks that they did it best because they did it first. Let me tell you something about your gestures on iOS. They are absolute trash. Tell me why I have to reach from the furthest left side of the display to go back in any application that I use. Not to mention, in most applications, it is different. There's a ton of applications where they show a back arrow at the top, or a button at the bottom, or it's a swipe left from the side. It is different in nearly every single application, but in no application, it is a swipe from the closest side to your thumb. On Android, it is a swipe from whatever side of the display, or you can choose a navigation bar from the bottom, which almost nobody uses now, but it's nice to have the option, especially on a large display. I don't know why navigation is so convoluted on an iPhone. Everyone is just used to it now, so nobody complains about it. But every time I go back from the Fold to the iPhone, it is a nightmare. And I can see why Android people complain about the navigation on the iPhone and people on iOS never complain about the navigation, because it's not something that even I would have thought about when I was mainly an iOS user. But going from Android to iOS is actually kind of ridiculous. Like, the way you navigate is completely different. Not only that, but navigation feels way more slow. Like, going back on Android is a lot more snappy because you just swipe and you're back. On iOS, you literally have to drag the page over, and sometimes, like, if you can't reach far enough, the page just goes back. And it's like, well, thanks. Like, I have to like literally reach my entire hand across the display. And on a screen that's as big as the 14 Pro Max, maybe I shouldn't have bought a phone this big, but sorry, I want a better battery life, because the 14 Pro battery life literally couldn't give me more than 4.5 hours of screen on time because it was absolute trash. This is why I don't make rant videos, because I go on absolute tangents. Another issue that I have with iOS is getting to the control center, because on a phone that's this large, you have to literally extend your thumb all the way up to the top to reach it, or enable reachability, which is a completely extra swipe. You have to do multiple steps to be able to access it, whereas on an Android phone, you just swipe from literally anywhere in the display. And it's not something that's a big deal, but it's just annoying. Like, there's so many things on the phone that take an extra step to do, but this is the thing, is like, it's an iPhone. It just works, but it doesn't. Like, there's so many things that are genuinely so convoluted on an iPhone, and people that have an iPhone and that use iOS think that it's literally the easiest, best platform to use because it's the only platform that they've used, or they've come from a $200 Android phone from like 2014. Like, times have changed. Budget Android phones from 2014 are not flagship Android phones from 2022. it's different now. Like, I'm telling you, it's different. Also, the way that iOS 16 handles the notifications now is just super weird. Like, I find myself actually missing notifications because it clumps them up, and for the first little while, I didn't actually realize that this changed in iOS 16. Like, you have to swipe up from the bottom now to see these new notifications, and it was weird. Like, everything gets organized, and notifications that are older or that you've already seen before get already tucked away, and I just miss a lot. Like, I miss text messages, and that doesn't help my ADHD brain because I already go like hours or days before I respond to people, and this just guarantees that I don't respond to literally anybody. So that's pretty cool. It's just so many things that iOS 16 could have done, could have changed. And iOS 16 was supposed to be the biggest change to iOS in so long, and all they did was allow you to change the color and shit of your fucking clock. Cool. I'm glad that we at least got a little bit of some customization, but at the end of the day, it's nothing. Like, it doesn't help me at all in my day-to-day. Like, I still can't put apps at the bottom where my dock is so that I can get easy access to them. I have to make fake widgets that mimic my wallpaper so that I can push apps to the bottom so that I don't have to fill my screen with junk. It just, come on, Apple. Like, how is the best-selling phone, the biggest adopted software on a mobile device, this limited? And people are gonna say in the comments, because of security, iOS is not that secure. I'll see you all in the next one. If you enjoy this video, please drop a like down below, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.